Hey guys, we are back for a brand new episode of the podcast. We have a very special interview today. We have Mr. Shah No Pain Hussain. For the people that don't know, he's a UK MMA veteran. He's fought on Cage Warriors, BAMMA, and he's fought very top high level fighters. It's going to be a very special interview. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. Before we get into it, I'd like to thank Shaheen MMA management for this opportunity. Give them a shout out. Best management team in the fight game. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and press the bell notification down below. Let's get straight to it. Hello, guys. It's Hamad Mir from MMA Diagnosis, and today I have a very special guest. He's a UK MMA veteran, Cage Warriors and BAMMA veteran, Mr. Shah No Pain Hussain. How are you, my brother?
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Hamad. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you on, man. So I've been watching you for a very long time. Honestly, I think you're the first Pakistani fighter I saw compete professionally. I don't know if you officially are. Can you put that on the record? Are you?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I've been told it years ago. To me, if it is or if it isn't, if it is, it's great, because it's obviously sort of sent out a good message and, good things and good vibes for future people to sort of get involved in the sport. But if you're talking officially, I'm not sure. So I can't verify it, that's the only thing. But yeah, one of the early guys to sort of be in the game for sure.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into it. How did you get started on your journey in martial arts then?
Okay, so must have been, I'm just trying to think back to my uni days. I graduated in 2003. Okay.
Oh, what did you graduate?
Yeah. I did my BA dual honours in criminology and contemporary culture from Manchester Metropolitan University. So I graduated there. I was into my weights before that. My background was always athletics. I was always a just track and field runner, 400 meter hurdler. Right. So I left the club in Slough and I went on to university and I just started lifting weights. And when I got back, I was still lifting weights. Lifting weights got boring for me because it was a case of, I wasn't improving. The only way I was going to improve was if I was taking some extra supplements, which I shouldn't be taking. Right? So I thought, you know what? I'm not going down that route. Yeah. So I got bored basically. And it was a time when I was just watching, I was waiting for a training partner of mine and there was a few guys in kimonos, as in the BJJ gi, they were rolling in the squash courts. And while I was waiting for my friend to join me in the gym, I was just watching these guys roll and they were all rolling on the floor and it just looked a lot different to what I was kind of used to seeing, And he never turned up, my training partner, in the end. So I just thought, you know what, rather than train by myself, because I was bored training by myself, doing weights. I went down there in the squash courts and it was a handful of guys. And I noticed the instructor was foreign, a Brazilian guy. So he just sort of said, come join in. I said, no, I just want to watch. And then I was just fascinated how there was big guys being, twisted around by smaller guys. And that got me my interest in martial arts initially. Then I started, this was in 2003 or 2004, this was. Wow. And then I joined up, I bought my first kimono and I started doing the classes and it was amazing. But then I always had this love for MMA. I always used to watch it wherever I could, whatever footage I could get, I'd watch. And that was the biggest fascination of mine. So when one of the BJJ guys there, David Lee, who was actually a UFC veteran, we were training together. He was a blue belt and I was a white belt then. And he then started doing MMA classes because he was actually already fighting MMA. I didn't know that. So I started doing his classes and then it just went on from there. So from 2004, 2005, I started training in MMA. I was a pretty late starter. I was about 23, 24 when I first started doing any martial art. So that was where it all started. And it's just been a roller coaster ride since then.
Again, I was going to get into that. David Lee now, UFC veteran. How was that experience? Because not a lot of people get randomly in contact with a guy who's fought in the UFC and had a
experienced MMA career like himself. So how was that experience training with high-level guys, especially at that time? Because there weren't many high-level guys, right? Especially in England.
Yeah.
So how was
That's right. I mean, David was I think he was the fourth or fifth ever Brit to actually sort of be on a UFC card back then. And you're talking, 2007. I think it was 2007 back then, when he first sort of had his first UFC fight. But he was, even before that, he was on like Cage Warriors 2, yeah, which is just crazy. So, it wasn't a case of how it was. It was like I found myself very lucky being around those sort of people. And, he was there, started the classes, and it was just the hardest thing was trying to grasp his knowledge. Yeah. Because there was so much going on. He's like a wizard on the floor. Yeah. And throw into the fact that his coach is Eric Paulson from the States. That's right. Yes. CSW, Combat Submission Wrestling. And, that, I mean, you've got a guy who's, like David Lee, who's got a background in CSW, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And when he brings it all together, you've got something special there. And it was just mind-blowing, the knowledge and the tricks and the, whatever he was pulling out. David was always known as an unorthodox fighter on the MMA scene in the UK. So to sort of be taught by someone like that was an honor and a privilege. And we were really lucky. We only, when we started, you didn't know how lucky you were. When you sort of moved on and progressed on in your career, that's when you actually truly appreciate your teacher's knowledge. So it was amazing, training under David Lee.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy, especially like catch wrestling specifically, because it doesn't get enough credit as it should. Like legendary guys in MMA like Sakuraba, Josh Barnett, these guys have, pushed catch wrestling, and you've obviously come from lineage where Eric Paulson and even with the BJJ, what was his lineage in jiu-jitsu, do you know? Or?
What, David's? Yeah. So we've got obviously Matteo Maida, Carlos Gracie Carlson. I should know it, right? But I've probably got it mixed up. But basically, Zé Marcelo is David Lee's coach. So that's his next lineage up. Yeah. So and so we're icon jiu-jitsu. So yeah.
Yeah, because especially back then, there wasn't many black belts, right? There was mainly blue, purples teaching at the time. The dynamics now is there's so many black belts here now. I mean, in Birmingham, we've got Abralio, and then you got Victor Estima, and then you got all these guys. In London, you got Hodge Gracie, etc. So moving on from that, I wanted to ask you, you had your first pro fight in 2006, right? How was the MMA scene back then?
It was, there wasn't much around, to be honest with you. And as a matter of fact, even though I was training with Dave in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was actually training with a Pakistani German Thai boxer. Before I actually had my first MMA fight. It was actually after that first fight when I thought, you know what, I need to be training with a proper team. So that's when I rejoined David Lee, in the MMA training. So going back then, to answer your question, what it was is back then the only scene, there was an amateur scene, okay, but it wasn't very big, and I had no knowledge of it. I kind of jumped in the sense of just where there was an opportunity to sort of showcase skills and jump in, and it was very dingy, very small places which were used. A handful of people who were on the scene were still on the scene, and people won't know of. And we were all fighting on those early shows. And if you saw, I don't know if you see the lineup on any, even on my sort of earlier shows, you'll see the who of who have kind of progressed on and moved on in their careers now. But the scene back then wasn't big at all. It was just a case of, there's a fight going. Like going back to my coach, my team, Dave, and us guys, we had no management. There was no, it was just like, look, this fight's come through. Who fancies it? Okay, let's jump on it. Let's train, and then let's just go and corner each other. Yeah, that's what it was. There was no structure, because Dave was still actively fighting, competing, and we were like his students, and we were now fighting professionally and competing. So yeah, it was a bit all over the place, and it's nice to see a bit more structure now in terms of like how it's all done, in the sense of, you know, you've got your coaches, you've got your training camps, you've got like nutritionists, and it was none of that back then. It was just stay after chapatis and a curry, yeah, and I hope for the best, yeah, yeah.
And I was gonna get into that. So you didn't have an amateur career. You had no.
Nah.
So you basically learned on the job. Okay,
Yeah, just jumped straight in my first ever fight. There was probably a couple of middlemen who got me the fight. They made quite, you know, they made some money on me. And my first pay packet from my first ever fight was something ridiculous, honestly. It was like, you know, but it wasn't for the money. It was more for the fact of, you know, getting in there and trying to
Could you
prove
get
myself.
could you get a kebab and chips with that pay you got?
Oh yeah. I could have bought everyone kebab and chips. Yeah, but the fact is, it's you know, it was more so for the love of the sport, you know, getting in there and competing. Totally the wrong way about it. You know, would never advise it to anyone who I know. But it's just how it was back then, and you know, sometimes you can't change these things. It's just how it was.
And so, how did you? Moving on from that, how did you get your nickname then? No Pain. So where did that come in?
Do you know what? That I really can't remember. I think it was just discussions between a few friends out of the martial arts community. Obviously, when they knew I was getting into fights, there was a few thrown in the mix. Yeah, one of them was like Hurricane. Yeah, but it just sounded a bit more WWF for me. Yeah, back in the day. And it just ended up being No Pain because
it rhymes with Hussein.
Yeah, probably that as well, because it rhymed with the same, you know, and it just stuck, and it's just now whenever I go in the gym or whatever, or it's never, hey Shah, how's it going? It's yo, No Pain, how's it going? Yeah, that's just how it is. But it was something which was discussed like within 3 circles, and then it just stuck. You know, No Pain was the one that stuck, and that's the one that was used.
All right, and so you had 11 victories in your career, right? Which victory was the most meaningful in your career? I'm gonna have a guess, but I'll let you.
Meaningful.
Was it the Pro Kumite win? Middleweight Championship.
You know what? I'll be honest with you, it wasn't. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it might have been that one.
Yeah, it's lovely to get a title around your waist, right? But one thing is, when the team I come from, right, it's like if you win or if you lose, right, that was never the case. It was what you should or what you shouldn't have done. So, believe it or not, right, after a win or a loss, okay, a loss is a loss. You know, you feel like crap. Yeah, you know, you've got the post-fight blues, and you just think about it afterwards when the adrenaline's calmed down. When you're winning, you know, you've just had your hand raised and you come out, you're buzzing, you know, the adrenaline's going crazy in your body. And it's like, with my coach, it was like, what the f was that? What was that all about? Why did you do that? And then that's in my head, that was drilled in from my head. And it's like, you know what, actually next time I'll do that. So the appreciation of a win was never, I mean, it was great winning, but it was more, you know, being the biggest critic of myself, thinking, did I put on the performance I wanted to? Yeah, the hand raised was a bonus. You know, that obviously that's the objective. But answering your question, if I'm being honest with you, honestly, I can't really give you any real fight where I thought, you know what, that was really, really good. Yeah, win or loss. I think the only one, if I'm being honest, the only one that sticks to my head was one which I had a few years ago, which was against a guy called Thomas Jessing. He was a Danish fighter who flew over from Denmark to fight me, and you know, we were both purple belts at the time, and I was happy with my ground game in that fight. You know, I think for the first time I showed the ground skills which I'm capable of, which I probably haven't shown in my previous fights. Okay, you know, I won that fight, but I was expected to win that fight. But I liked how I showcased my skills a little bit more on the ground. So that was probably the only one that sticks to my mind, not the title win.
Okay, because I thought it might have been that one because you looked ecstatic after you won that fight.
Yeah, I think you look ecstatic until you go back to the dressing room and your coach is like, "What the F was that?" You know. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not like he's putting a down on things. He's just saying there's room for to sort of like improve. Yeah, and which I think is really important. I think that's what keeps guys grounded on the floor. That's what keeps you humble. It's not a case of that. You should never think that one little win or that one little moment was something which has made you. Nah, there's always room to improve. Like me thinking, or being highlighted. Oh, you're one of the first guys to sort of fight pro MMA in the Asian community or the Pakistani community. Great, thank you. That's nice to highlight, but that's not an achievement. That just happens to be something where I was in the right place at the right time, maybe. So we should always aim high and have high standards.
Yeah, and moving on from that, you last fought in 2018, right? So are you officially retired, or are you still planning to make a comeback? What's the...
Ahmed, why do you say that to me for? Why are you saying this?
Because we have fighters. Because a lot of fighters now. Look at, like, I'll give you an example. BJ Penn now.
Yeah.
And then we've got all these other fighters. They all have an itch to come back. Are you like that, or are you content? Or
do you know what? If I'm being honest with you, right, I think that's me kind of done. Yeah. And the only reason why I say that is purely because, like you've kind of mentioned examples of BJ Penn. Yeah. Now I love BJ Penn. And I've followed his career from day one. A lot of people love BJ Penn, but you get to a stage when you think it's such a shame what's happening now. Where all the losses have come about and fighting in different weight categories, and it's not. It's not because he's short of a payday, right? It's clearly not that. He's got his own gym, he's got his own setup or whatever. It's just that I won't call it ego or pride. It's just that thing about being a fighter where you just don't know when to stop. Yeah. And in all honesty with myself, I started off with some losses on my record. Then I was winning some, losing some. Then I kind of brought my record up to even Stevens, and then it kind of went back into the losses again. And then I kind of like thought, well, my aim and my goal was, I thought I'm going to be finished before I'm 40, and you know what? That's what I did. Yeah. And the training camps sort of leading up to the last few years before me retiring were difficult. There was like a lot of injuries. There was, the recovery wasn't there. I remember back in, I think it was 2018 or 2017. I did before I fought John Maguire, I did a camp out in Thailand, in Phuket, and I was there for a few weeks just preparing, and I just wasn't recovering like I used to. And I've been in Thailand like 5-6 times. I've trained out there, and each time it was different, but this time was just different. Yeah, I was training twice a day, and but when it came to the evening session, my body was still in bits. And I think, these are signs for you to kind of, it's your body telling you, there's younger guys. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But going back to your question, I didn't really want, to sort of go off in like a nine fight losing streak, and just for the sake of my ego, so I had to, and bearing in mind, another thing I want to mention is, like a lot of people, like probably 80% of fighters, you call them professional fighters, but how many of them are actually full-time professionals?
I was going to get into that. So
yeah, sorry. But I'll let you answer the question. But the point being is, there's other distractions. When there's other distractions, and you can't focus on a task, 100% to, like, mentally and physically, to sort of being there fighting against someone who wants to take your head off. You've got to make decisions, especially when the wins are not happening anymore. So it was more of a decision which I made already. But when you talk about the itch of coming back, is always there. Because when I retired, I'm seeing stuff about there's opportunities happening. Unfortunately, most of the opportunities actually sort of came about a lot more just as I was towards the end of my career. And prime examples of that are my own teammates, like from Team Crossface, and the likes of Charlie Leary, Sam Patterson, Martin Hudson. These guys have gone on to sort of fight on Brave Combat Federation, Bellator, So I kind of finished up as they were still, but these guys were, training full time, and training twice a day. With myself, I've always juggled this as a career, which has come about. I've always worked in the private security industry, doing 12-hour shifts. I don't do that many hours now, but for the last 15 years. So juggling that, family, I've got 2 kids, I've got a wife, I've got a house, I'm your average guy who's sort of like jumped into this MMA bandwagon as a hobby, and then it's become a career. But, I fought pro rules MMA, whether people want to call me a professional MMA fighter, I've got my own sort of take on that, but going back to what you're saying again, sorry, I got off the point a little, but the point is, the itch is always there. Yeah. Right. I swear to God, it really is. And after retiring, I was lost. I didn't really know what to do. And I was still looking on, whenever opportunities were coming, but I thought, what, shall I throw my hat in, my name in a hat for that? Or shall I not? And then, my wife would have a few stern words with me, right? And she'd make my mind up for me. I'll tell you, are you married?
No, not yet.
Well, you know what? You'll find that when you do, right? And, So but I'll tell you, the itch is always there. I hear Mike Tyson is actually, he's making a comeback against Roy Jones Jr. Yeah, can't wait for that fight. But how that's relevant to what I was your point is that he's actually looking to bring out a league of veterans, for in boxing, So it just shows you. Even him being like 54, 55 years old, he's still thinking in the sense that, look, there's so many fighters who've still got that burning desire to come back and compete, right? Why don't I set up a league where guys, or, a fight show where all mature guys or guys a bit past their prime are going to come in? I mean, his insurance premiums might go through the roof because of like age and health reasons or whatever, right? For these fighters. But listen, it just shows you, once a fighter, always a fighter, and they're always thinking, of the next fight. But for myself, for now, I'm happily retired. I've got other focuses still in martial arts, but I don't think I'll be fighting in the cage anytime soon.
I was gonna get into your side hustle. I'm not gonna lie to you. I never looked this up. I just thought you must have been a bouncer. You have that
bouncer?
Look. Yeah. Or like in that's what I thought. So when you said it to me, you were in private security, I could see that. Like you got the look.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you'd asked me at the start, what made me get into MMA was one actually example, from when I was doing my weight training, was, when in clubs and stuff, when it kicks off, because I've always worked in the nightclubs and stuff, right? And what it is there was fights that were kicking off and I was gassing. I was blowing out my ass. I was just dragging people out. I was strong, but I was gassing, right? And I was, a lot slower to move. When you're carrying a lot more muscle mass, you're not moving as quick, And then that's when I decided that, well, hang on a second. I'm realizing this, and I'm also realizing the fact that, I'm getting bored with lifting weights. That's when I went into martial arts, and it kind of progressed. But that was one of the real reasons, is working as a bouncer and then realizing, this is hard work and I need to change my fitness based around that. But that was when I was doing more kind of the regular sort of door work and stuff. But since 2005, 2006, I've been involved in the private security sector, meaning working for private clients, Middle Eastern clients and that sort of thing. That's my thing now.
So you're doing so getting into your balancing, and I'll get more into that. Do you have any good street fight stories? Any stories where you had to, that you can legally say?
Yeah, only through the bouncing days, right? Which was where people want to offer you out, and then you say, okay, let's do this after. And after work hours, they're not even there, and the ones that do turn up, they don't expect you to turn up. And when you turn up, they basically, dropped their load and they've kind of gone off. There was a couple of fights I had, outside, but that was purely because you were trying to be kind and say, listen, leave it out. I'm not interested. And then people take that as a weakness. And then when they end up with like, when they're holding like a few teeth in their hands, then that's when they realize they shouldn't have messed, or they're clutching their nose because you just broken their nose. Yeah. But if I'm being honest, there's only been a couple of occasions, but I'm not one of those guys to kind of go, I was a street fighter, then I became an MMA fighter, none of that crap. I avoid confrontations wherever I can. But yeah, there are not many fights on the street.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of fighters are like that, where they don't like confrontation. They're kind of more cool, mellow. With my interactions, anyways, with a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of them. You get the odd. You get the odd few. They're not all that in the head, but mainly though, when you do martial arts, it teaches you, to be humble, to be disciplined, and let's face it, like for me, when I was like sparring with people every day, getting punched and kicked in the face or whatever, yeah. The last thing you really want is another fight on the street, because you're doing it day in, day out, and you think, what? Nah, I don't fancy. Obviously, if it came to it to protect yourself or your loved ones, you'd do it, But at the back of my head, you see, it was always the fact that, I'm working in the private security sector. That's like my livelihood, and if on the street, the old school coppers were a little bit more different to the new school coppers, yeah, meaning they'd kind of just. An incident would happen and they'd say, look, guys, here's a statement sheet, sign the statements, write your names at the bottom, and we'll clip them at the end of the night. That's how it was. And then as the years went on, it was almost like the coppers were just, they were just different. They'd actually go out their way to shaft you and, to make sure that it's the security guys they actually end up. I've, not that I'm proud of saying it, but I've ended up in a police cell a lot of times during my bouncing days, and that's purely because of protocol. It's not because I'd done something wrong. It's because to investigate, they've got to arrest two parties, and then they take statements, and so that's how it was. And I got sick of sort of ended up in police cells for something which wasn't my fault, and the job became very boring. So in 2006, I quit bouncing completely. And that's when I started working in private security, which is a lot more respectful, a lot more cleaner, and you don't have to deal with like guys who are pissed up every weekend.
Yeah. And so you fought some, so moving on from your bouncing now, you fought some top caliber fighters. So you fought guys like Tom Breeze, John Maguire, Terry Brazier. These guys are fought in UFC, Bellator. So you've got an established career, right? So is coaching, all that knowledge now you've soaked up, you've got, as I like to call it, career capital now in MMA. Are you going to use that now? Are you doing coaching now, or is it you investing in other gyms? Or
Yeah, I've been coaching for the past sort of like 7 years now. Yeah. I was still coaching while I was actually actively fighting. I coach at Blackbeard MMA, which is a friend of mine's gym in Slough in Berkshire, and I teach 1 day a week there because I've got so much other.
Speaking about Blackbeard, were you one of the promoters for it on the shows? Because they have the show.
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't the promoter. There's Blackbeard Fight Series, which is a show, and then there's Blackbeard MMA, which is a club. I teach at Blackbeard MMA 1 day a week, and then the Blackbeard Fight Series shows, I was the commentator. So I was doing the commentary. So all the fights which you hear, or whatever, I'm one of the guys doing the commentary on. So I've been teaching. I've also been teaching in Birmingham. In Aston. First Reaction MMA,
that's my area.
That's your area, is it?
Yeah,
okay. Well,
I've been there.
Yeah. So that's a friend of mine.
First Reaction. Let's give them a shout out.
Yeah, I've done a lot of seminars there. I've taught down there as well, and obviously because like I was born and bred in Birmingham, so I'm originally Small East, Spark Hill. Yeah, so I've got a lot of family there, but moved sort of down Slough way when I was like 7 or 8. But I'm still going back, still teaching, and so excited about being able to get back on the mats and teach again. But now it's just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for me now. So that's what
Okay,
I'm.
so is that you're going to be competing in? You think in IBJJF or these kind of tournaments?
At the minute, I'll be honest with you, because having retired in December 2018, all I've really been doing is trying to get my gi jiu-jitsu game, back up there. And what I want to do is, compete nationally first, and then, maybe pick up some British titles here, there, if I can. And then once I'm ready, sort of like then start, doing the IBJJF competitions. But that's the plan. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing you, man. Competing. I find it hard to watch the jiu-jitsu, but yeah, I'll be looking out for you, man, if you're on the IBJJF scene and the
No, 100%.
British skis, yeah. So out of the guys that I mentioned, or like any fighter, who was the toughest opponent in your career?
I'd say the toughest opponent, obviously they're all tough, right, in their own right because of their history and their backgrounds. But the one that sticks to mind was when I fought Dean Amersinger on BAMMA 4 back in the day. He was strong, man. He was like, I mean, I'm in the gym and whatever, and I'm strong compared to some guys.
Yeah.
You know your own kind of strengths, but obviously when you come up against a guy who weighs in the same weight as you, and then obviously claws back, God knows how much weight Dean must have clawed back that time, yeah. But he was really heavy, and that's when you feel the guy's strengths, in the fight. It's when they're really heavy, when they're on the top, when they're dominating, and you're surviving, But at the end of the day, you know what? It's not about who you fight. It's about getting the win. That's what's the most important thing. But having fought these guys, pushing myself, and if I've taken guys to decisions or whatever, I wasn't the favorite going in. That's kind of being a good confidence in coming out of it. But main thing is, a loss is a loss, and that's what it is at the end of the day. That's what it gets taken as, yeah. But for personal development, at least you have that thing in your head, like, well, you know what? I'm just a guy from Slough in Berkshire, but I can hang in with these guys, yeah. And that's the positivity I take away from that. But again, a loss is a loss, and it's only a 2-horse race, so that's just how it goes.
Yeah, man. Because with your experience and your knowledge, man, hopefully the next generation of fighters are going to be at even higher level now. Because it's kind of like guys like yourself who gave the opportunities now to these younger fighters. Really, if we look at it, let's be honest. Like you lot aren't even getting the pay now that they get. Even now, the pay is still a bit. It still needs a lot of work to be done, right? But
100%.
Is the paychecks like how you fought recently? Were the paychecks a lot better from when you? Did you see
They were, yeah. They were a lot better right towards when I finished fighting. But I mean, still, when you do the comparison to boxing, it's just and I think MMA guys really need to get a lot. They need to be paid a lot more money than what they should be getting paid. Even from on the not the world's biggest stage like the UFC or whatever, but even the mediocre shows, I think they should pay. But then they've got their own arguments, as in there's no money in the sport or whatever. But the point is, look, things are getting better, right? And it's only a good thing. And I think your records and stuff show it for itself. The better guys you fight, the better improvements you make in yourself, the more titles you win, the higher you get up in the rankings. The more money people will give you as in terms of sponsorship. So. Definitely the sport's growing. I never thought, I'd still be saying this, but unfortunately that's the reality of it, like 15 years, 16 years on, compared to what it was when, I first started. But yeah, things are getting better. Things are, definitely improving, and inshallah, there'll be a lot more money in the sport in the future, but let's just see what happens with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking on that, because you mentioned you had crappy management and there was no management, what advice would you give to like young fighters now who want to become professional full-time athletes? How would you say they should direct their career path? Okay.
The management back then, there was no management.
Yeah, that's right.
Luckily for myself, only towards the end of my career, I got some really good management. The fight agency, Chris Clark, amazing guy. But the point is, if you want to, as a fighter, the only advice I can really give is don't worry about fighting. Train, learn the art or learn the disciplines, bring them together, just become a good MMA fighter in your gym first. Bring all the skills together. And then when you think you're ready to fight, your coach will let you know. Let your coach make that decision. You can obviously speak to your coach about goals and ambitions which you have, but your coach will let you know when you're ready. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys who've kind of jumped in. I mean, mine can't really excuse that because there was no one there to guide us. We were all fighters back then. But there's a lot more experienced people now in the industry, whether that's in Pakistan or here. Your coaches will tell you when you're ready. Unfortunately, there's some kids or some younger guys, they just they feel like they have to get in there. They get their asses kicked and then you don't see them again. They don't want to put the work in. So the advice would be to make sure you get a reputable coach, and train under a reputable gym. Not that they're no disrespect to karate practitioners, that they're a karate, or a kickboxing gym and they've just thrown MMA on their banner. Just to sort of say we're an MMA gym. This is it, exactly. There's a specific MMA gym with a specific MMA coach, and just make sure you know his background. That's the most important thing. So train first. Don't worry about fighting. Let your coach decide when you're ready to fight, and just take the amateur route. Now when you look at the amateur scene now, honestly, they're literally training and competing like professionals. They're putting in fight camps. They're going abroad. They're getting sponsors for themselves. People are want to invest in them because they're seeing how much talent these kids have got, and they're comfortable fighting at amateur because they want to get it so right when they turn professional. That it's going to be like a walk in the park. But for someone who's just thinking of maybe not having that much of an amateur career and jumping straight in as a pro, that's where things are going to go wrong. You really want to get that whole competition experience and make all the mistakes you can as an amateur. Or even better on the mats. Then make that transition when your coach tells you it's right to do so.
So young people listen to that, and hopefully you'd have a successful MMA career. I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions before we end it. So you're stranded on an island. You can only choose one singular martial art to defend yourself. Which one would it be?
Out of all the martial arts?
Yeah, but not
what was that?
So hand to hand. So any hand to hand.
Right. I can choose two martial arts, right?
Or one.
Oh, one.
Yeah.
Okay.
One.
It'd have to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
All right. So one word to describe these people. GSP.
Legend.
Anderson Silva.
One word. Amazing.
All right. Conor McGregor.
Size. SIGHSS.
Oh. Khabib. Nurmagomedov.
The best.
All right. Firas Zahabi.
Great.
All right. Greg Jackson.
Good.
Mike Tyson.
Legendary.
Fedor.
Legend.
Muhammad Ali.
The greatest. 2 words.
All right, 2 words for him. All right, thank you for your time. It's an honor to have you on. Is there any sponsors you'd like to shout out, and where can people find you on social media?
Okay, now thank you, Ahmad, for having me. Thank you, MMA Diagnosis guys. You guys are doing an amazing job. Keep it up. That's first and foremost. Just want to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his grace in letting me be able to do this sport in the first place. And I just want to thank all my coaches, my coach David Lee from Team Crossface, all my teammates from Team Crossface. I want to thank all my coaches, Zay Marcelo, all my teammates, all the black belts from Icon Jiu-Jitsu. I want to thank all my friends, my coach, all my friends, my students from Blackbeard MMA. I want to thank Aki Zaman from First Reaction MMA, and all his students for all the love and support they've shown me over the years. I want to thank my previous management who've always got me fights. I want to thank all the sponsors who I've ever worked with, who've ever worked with me. I can't think of all of them, and it would be unfair to say name people individually, but they all know who they are. I want to thank everyone who's ever bought a ticket to come show their support to me. And I want to thank all the MMA community in Pakistan as well for showing love and support there. And I've been involved in a lot of projects over there as well. I don't want to say a lot of projects, but whenever I've been over there, I've done my contributions there as well. Just want to thank everyone. And here's to the future. Here's to MMA management now, which I'm involved in. And so God bless.
And the social media?
Social media, Twitter, No Pain Hussain.
Okay.
Instagram, Shah at No Pain. At Shah No Pain.
Yeah.
And Facebook, my name is down as Shahid Hussain, which is my real name on Facebook. So you can sort of check that out, see a pretty picture on there, and then request a like. Other than that, alhamdulillah, thank you for everything. And good luck with everything, what you do, guys, because what you're doing is you're promoting the sport of MMA, all around. And I enjoy tuning in and listening to the interviews you guys do with different people, because it's great to see a lot of the youngsters who have sort of come through now and they're well into their careers. And I'm always keeping an eye on your things. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. And we'll put your social media links in the description so people check that out. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor, man. Inshallah, we'll have you on maybe in the future as well. So see you next time, man, hopefully.
My pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed the interview, guys. I'd like to thank Mr. Shaheen No Pain Hussain for the opportunity. I also like to thank Shaheen MMA management for sorting out this interview. If you enjoy these type of interviews, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and press the bell notification down below. Peace.